And now we're along with David Jenkins of the Standard Democrat. And David, it's good to have you back.
Good to be back.
And it's a very exciting time right now. We're in the state playoffs in football, and we still got some teams somewhat in the area in the hunt for the state titles in their respective classes. And we're just starting out with Class 1. Valley Catholic, the defending state champions in Class 1, they're making another run, and they've got a game today with we'll get it up there. It escapes me at this point. Valley Catholic, who they're playing today.
I'm not really sure. I just know that Valley, they.
There we are, Skyline.
Yeah, Skyline. Yeah. They play. They have that offense that's, it's tough to stop. That spread offense, and they're going to be a tough team to. Skyline, they've got their work cut out for them today.
Sure. And Valley Catholic, I think they were in the state championship game 2 years ago as well. Lost the state championship, come back last year, won it. Mm-hmm. So making another run at it this year, potentially playing in 3 straight state championship games.
I know back in the 80s they kind of dominated Class 1, and then the 90s kind of gave way to other teams, and now they're back, and they're just a tough team to beat up there in St. Genevieve's. St. Genevieve's just got all kinds of football talent up there.
Yeah, they do. They've got 2 great teams up there this year, that's for sure. And looking on down the line there in Class 1, let's go back to the bracket there. And Concordia and Archie's in the next quarterfinal game there. South Shelby, Westron, Wellington, Napoleon, and East Buchanan. So the remainder of those games are, pretty much the top teams in the state in the other games as well.
Right. Wellington, Napoleon, they're a good team year in, year out, and Western is as well. I figure one of those 2 teams would come out of that bottom part of the bracket. But I would think that Valley is kind of the favorite at this point.
Sure, and they've got another great team this year up there in St. Gen. And Class 2, of course, we've got the most local team we have, the Crothersville Tigers, making another run this year, and they're in the quarterfinal round today against Maplewood Richmond Heights, the team that knocked them out last year. Was it the semifinal round last year?
It was quarterfinal round.
Quarterfinal round, okay. So Crothersville making another run. Maplewood Richmond Heights, the same team that knocked them out. So maybe a little revenge game here for the Tigers today.
Yeah, I went and watched Crothersville on Monday night against Crystal City, and that was all they were talking about after the game, was trying to get revenge on Maplewood, and they just they've been looking forward to this game all year, and they've got the team to beat them this year. They've got a tough running game. They're playing better defensively. They can just eliminate some senseless penalties that they had early in the game against Crystal City, which that might come back to bite them against Maplewood. But they're a good team.
Sure, and I can't say I'm really surprised of how well of a team Crothersville brought back this year due to all the talent they've got on that team, but just from top to bottom, from every position, usually, with the team they had last year that was, had a lot of seniors, you at least expect, a dip off of some sort, but it doesn't seem like they really had one this year.
No, they didn't. They're just as good this year as they were last year, maybe even a little better. They're playing a lot of young kids. There's a lot of sophomores that get playing time. One of their top running backs is Daryl Monroe. He's rushed for over 1,000 yards this year, and he's a sophomore. They've got I think their quarterback's a sophomore, Tyler Grissom. they've got a lot of young kids, and they just keep rebuilding down there. They just one guy graduates, they just place another one put another one in his place, and they're ready to go. And they're a tough team. They've got a big offensive line and defensive line that kind of dominates the action, and there again with a lot of younger kids on it, and they're just a tough team.
And not to mention Elby Fonda.
Yeah. I haven't even mentioned him, and he's probably the best running back in the area. Right. He's so strong, but he can just stop and cut on a dime. He's so tough for other teams to stop, because you think you have him. He's got 3 guys around him, and he'll make a cut and then just blow right past them. And he's got good takeoff speed, and just the ability to make people miss, and that's he's the whole package.
He really is. And the only loss the Tigers had this year was against the Dexter Bearcats here in Dexter, and that was probably the game of the year.
Yeah,
in Southeast Missouri, 58-56.
I think 56-55. Yeah, 56-55. It was a crazy game, and just whichever team had the ball last, you thought was going to win.
Right.
And, fortunately, Dexter intercepted a pass there late to win it, but that was probably 2 of the best offenses in Southeast Missouri. The 2 of them and Sykeston have, I would say, the 3 best offenses, and that was a fun game to watch. And not, offensively they were both teams obviously were scoring points, but the hitting that was going on in that game too. There was a lot of big hits, and it seemed like after every play, there's guys laying on the field, and they're having to help them off. And I had a lot of fun watching that game.
Oh yeah, and Crothersville always here the past few years been a great team to watch, and Dexter as well with especially the offenses they had. They just burn up the scoreboard. But the Crothersville Tigers got a big opponent tonight in Maplewood Richmond Heights. We'll take a look at the bracket for the remainder of this class, and that's North Callaway and Osage, Logan Rogersville and Cassville, and O'Hara and Richmond. And in Class 4, we have Farmington taking on Gateway Tech today in the quarterfinals, and haven't had a chance to see Farmington this year, but I know looking at the scores that they must be awful tough because they put a hurting on Sykeston and then put a hurting on Hillsboro in the regional round or in the sectional round.
Right, Farmington's impressive. They've got a quarterback who can throw the ball and run it. They've got a good running back, and they've got wide receivers that are fast and can get open. They run good routes, and their offensive line just dominates the game. You just can't get any pressure on their quarterback, and it's Gateway's going to have a tough time beating them today because I've seen both teams, and Gateway has an outstanding quarterback, little quick kid. I think his name's Paul Rice, and he's just a real quick kid. He's got a great arm. Right? He's about 5'11", but he's got an arm. He can just effortlessly throw the ball down the field, and about 50 yards. Just without even just so smooth. But that's about all they had, early in the season whenever I saw them. And Farmington's, they've got the whole package. They've got a good defense, and they're well coached. So I think Farmington should have their way with Gateway today.
And Gateway Tech was the team that beat Sykeston earlier in the year, the first game of the year, I believe. And didn't beat them up all that bad.
Yeah, it was 34-14. Sykeston had an early lead on them, and then Gateway kind of took advantage of some cramps and stuff that Sykeston had, and Sykeston's not very deep, and which was showed later in the season, and they just took advantage of some of Sykeston's better players not being in the game. And matter of fact, James Watson, I believe, didn't play much of the second half of that game, who was Sykeston's best running back, and not making excuses for Sykeston. Gateway was a better team, but that's why the score was a little bit skewed the way it was. They were a lot closer than that game was a lot closer than the score was.
Yeah, and Farmington, you see them playing their opponents all year and they're getting big wins, but when you come down to the end of the year, I thought them and Sykeston would be a very good game, and it turned out to be
that score was not indicative of that was the actual 55-20 and 55-21, I think, and they could have scored more. They called off the dogs late, and it was they're just, like I said, their offensive line just dominated the game. They're getting 4 or 5 yards of carry at the least, and then whenever they would decide to pass, they would their wide receivers were running past Sykeston's defensive backs, and you never expected that. I was talking to you earlier. The first play of the game, the Farmington kid leaps a Sykeston defensive back and gains about 10 yards, and you're thinking Sykeston may have some problems at that point. And they did. Farmington is just very impressive with what they do. And
now, do they still have Zach Hibbets, the quarterback?
No,
he graduated.
He graduated last year. This is another quarterback who's if you look down their roster, they've got in each class they've got a quarterback that's like 6'2", 180, and they just in each class, and they just bring him up and play him as a senior, and then he graduates, and the next guy comes in and does the same thing. It seems like they've been doing it for years now, and they've just got. They're a lot like Crothersville. They've got their system in place, and they just continue to reload instead of rebuild.
Yeah, that's one program to really look out for in the coming years. Farmington, they've really come on strong, and they've been consistent here in the last few years. They've just consistently gotten better, and then you can see where it's come to a head now with the team that they've got this year.
Yeah, they're very well coached. You can just see they're very disciplined. They don't get a lot of penalties. They don't make a lot of mistakes. A lot of teams, they can have a lot of talent, but if you make mistakes, have stupid penalties, and that ends up costing you in this drive and that drive. Farmington doesn't do that. They hang on to the ball. They don't fumble. They don't throw interceptions. They're very, they just don't make mistakes. And when their offensive and defensive line dominates the game the way they do, it's just really tough for the other team unless you have a dominant offensive line as well, which they may end up meeting up with in Webb City or something in a state championship game, but. Around here, you have a team like theirs, they're going to have a lot of success.
Yeah, we'll be looking forward to see how they fare today against Gateway Tech in the Class 4 quarterfinals, and we'll just touch on the games, other remaining games in the quarterfinal round as well in Class 4. And on down the bracket, we have Country Day there with St. Francis Borgia. That's big St. Louis matchup there in the other quarterfinal. Hillcrest and Webb City. Webb City, number 1 ranked team in the state, and down the way is Harrisonville and Savannah. So some tough teams ahead there that have traditionally been there. And they're in the Class 4 and up in the bigger schools. So
right, yeah, Webb City's always the class of Class 4, and Harrisonville used to be the class of Class 3, and then they moved up a few years ago, and they didn't really miss a beat. They're not winning state championships, but they're in the playoffs every year. And I think Savannah handled Poplar Bluff pretty easy earlier in the season. I mean, and Hillcrest has the top recruit in the nation in the wide receiver Dorian Green, and he, all 4 of those teams are really, really good, and that's just a tough side of the bracket to be on. That western part of the state in Class 4 football is just a different level.
Yeah. I think in football, it's people always ask, well, why don't we have state champions in football? Why don't we have state champions in football? Because we get them in basketball, quite frequently, but you get in that football and you get up into these cities and it's just different.
Right.
These teams they bring 60 players and
right.
they're so deep. That's the difference. They're so deep at every position.
Especially when you get in the western part of the state, Webb City and in the Springfield area, and they've always just have such talent out there, and they're not. Grant Wistrom, a lot of people remember for the Rams. He played, and I think he's an assistant coach for Webb City now. They just have all kinds. I mean, they just all kinds of talent over there, and they start playing football young, and they live and breathe it over there. It's kind of like a mini Texas. Texas loves their high school football, and western part of the state they love their high school football, and basketball is kind of second nature. Where here basketball means everything to everybody. Over there not so much. So it's football rules over in the west part of the state.
Yeah, and if you break it down, 5 players on the court at a time for basketball, and if you got 2 or 3, talented players, you can do a lot with. But 11 players, if you got 2 or 3 that are talented and the rest are average,
right?
Yeah, that's the
difference. Match up against these kids who are 11 deep, So and then they have their junior varsity team could beat a lot of the varsity teams from around here. So they if you ever have a chance to watch Webb City play, you should. They're very talented and very fun to watch.
Yeah, and Grant Wistrom, always remember Grant Wistrom of the Rams, and he's a Webb City native. So, so we'll see how it all plays out. That's Class 1 through 4. We don't have any local teams in Class 5, and there's actually 6 classes in Missouri, but no representatives in those classes for this year. And we finished up volleyball. We had some teams make a run this year, and had the state championships in Cape Girardeau at the Show Me Center. So that was really nice starting this year.
Yeah, it was kind of a shame. One of the first years Southeast Missouri doesn't have a representative in the Final Four is the year that they have it at the Show Me Center. There were some good teams this year that just didn't make it out. Bernie, I thought they had a chance, and they got knocked off. And Scott City was the top team in the state all year long, undefeated. And they lose in sectionals to St. Pius from Festus, and Bloomfield then lost to St. Pius. So St. Pius had a really nice team, but some teams just fell just short. But there were some really good teams: Bloomfield, Bernie, Scott City. I saw 3 of those teams play this year, and they were all very good teams.
Yeah, and then St. Pius come away with the state title in Class 2.
Yes,
and it's. They made it to the state championship last year.
Right.
Lost to Herman and come away with it this year.
Right. And that was a good team. St. Pius is a very good team, and obviously to beat Scott City was very talented. But Scott City had beaten them early in the season, and you just kind of expected Scott City to win, and just didn't happen. It wasn't in the cards. But they had a fine year. I think they finished 31-1-1. I mean that's a pretty nice season, and Bloomfield did as well. Losing in the quarterfinals to St. Pius, and they're a lot of good volleyball played in this area.
Sure, a lot of good teams, and we saw teams up at the top of the state rankings all year long, and so we always usually have a good crop of volleyball teams down here. Seems like, and like you said, this year we just didn't happen to have a team go to the state Final Four and right up here in Southeast Missouri.
One of those years that every single year there's always at least one team, and this year there was none. At the Show Me Center, but it'll be back, and I'm sure next year that there'll be some good teams from Southeast Missouri make the run and make it to the Final Four again. They're too good to stay away for very long. So
sure. Now are the state championships in Show Me Center for the next maybe 4 or 5 years?
I believe so. I think they're there. I think they do it for like a 4-year. So I think the next 3 years it should be at Show Me Center. I'm not 100% on that, but that's usually the way they do it. They usually plan like 4 years ahead, and so that I assume they'll be at Show Me Center next year.
Yeah, that's a great deal. Mm-hmm. We've been used to going to Kansas City for the state championships for the past few years. Anytime you have to
drive to Kansas City to see something that's good. I know that Sykes' soccer team is playing in St. Louis today, and if they win, every year the soccer Final Four has been played in Fenton up in by St. Louis and everything. This year it's in Blue Springs up by Kansas City, so it's like, well, here Sykes makes their first run ever, and it's going to be in Kansas City. So you like to see those things close. It brings out more fans, and they. A lot easier for us and the media too to cover them. So
sure, of course, yeah. But we'll see. A great season of volleyball, local talent, and we'll be looking forward to next year as well. And David, we're only probably 2 to 3 weeks away from basketball season kicking off, and the Riverbend Classic is pretty much the kickoff event for the basketball season over at New Madrid. And I took a look at the teams coming, and we're seeing some of the same teams from other states, like West Memphis is coming in, I believe, and North Little Rock. And I think Kennett's in the mix this year, one of the local teams.
Right. It's just a great event. That's my favorite thing is the Riverbend, always, after Thanksgiving, and it gets you into basketball season real quick. And, a lot of good games this year. Scott Central is back over there again, and, everybody's kind of interested to see what they're going to have, after losing Otto Porter and Kennett, and, Kennett lost some good players from last year, so it's always a good time to find out what everybody has. And of course, Charleston, I think, is going to be the top Missouri school over there this year. They're loaded, and then of course New Madrid's over there, and they've struggled the last few years, and it's kind of interesting to see what they're going to have this year.
Yeah, and you said Charleston. Charleston's had good teams over the past few years, but you say that even this year they're going to be even better. So they're probably just younger and then just getting older.
They really didn't lose anybody from last year. They've got Greg Tucker, who's back, and he's all-stater last year and averaged about 18, 19 a game. And then they got their point guard and Parham back. They've got everybody back, and they're just improved. I know they had a really good summer. I know they beat Sykes in pretty good over the summer, and they just had just a real good summer for them, and a lot of expectations for them this year. And I think after making the Final Four last year, I think they finished third. And they have pretty much everybody back. They're wanting to make a run and wanting to win that state title.
Yeah, and they've got the talent to do it. We saw it seen it over the past few years. That young talent, you just knew it was coming. Mm-hmm. Playing as sophomores, and eventually now juniors and seniors. So it's likely to potentially happen for the Blue Jays this year. Mm-hmm. So we'll definitely be looking forward to seeing how they do this year.
Yeah, Charleston will never be down for long. They got too much talent over there, and they're well coached, and they just play basketball all the time over there, and they're not going to be down for long.
Yeah, it's never really a matter of lack of talent. It just might be that it's young talent
that's
developing, and it's that's usually the case over there. But we'll be looking forward to the Riverbend Classic over in New Madrid. That's the Friday and Saturday after Thanksgiving later on this month, and that pretty much kicks off the basketball. And we'll get started here at White Sea in the next few weeks down in Arkansas for a few games. We'll touch on our schedule coming up a little later in the show, but it's coming upon us, and it comes quick.
Oh yeah, it comes quick, and it seems to stay for a while too.
Oh yeah.
Football starts up, and as soon as it starts, it almost seems like it's over. But basketball, it goes for a while, and it's always a fun time of year.
Yeah, it's end of November and all the way through the end of February and into March with the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So it's a long season. Yeah. It really is. But we enjoy it, and we'll be looking forward to it. David, anything else the viewers might take interest in what's going on out there?
No, not really. I think it's pretty much, just everybody's gearing up for basketball season and getting ready to go. Yeah, we're kind of in the middle, now. Only a few teams remaining in football in the fall sports. We're gearing up for the winter sports coming up here in a few weeks. So, it's just that time that we're just kind of in the middle, in the transition. Right. So it'll be coming here in a few weeks. But, David, we appreciate you coming on today and sharing with us, and we always like to have you on to
share with us what's going on in the area. You cover the sports there at Standard Democrat, and y'all do a great job. And we'll be looking forward to having you back and probably talk a little bit of basketball.
Be good to be back.
All right, good deal. That's David Jenkins of the Standard Democrat.